Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
Live streaming. Thank you very much. Members, you've received your open announcements, but I'd just like to make a comment on the recent election and to congratulate all those from council who put their name forward for the ballot paper, and also to congratulate former Councillor Tennyson. Don't forget now, maybe Councillor Lavery, you could pass on to him. You'll have to actually go to meetings now. Agenda item 1. Apologies from Alderman Spears. Can I open the floor for other apologies, please? Councillor Cosby.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just apology for Councillor Tinsley, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 2. Moving on to council minutes. Agenda item 2.1. Can I seek a proposal and seconder the minutes of the special council meeting held on the 25th of April 2022 be taken as read and as approved as a correct record? Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, proposed, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And can I get a seconder? Second by Alderman Anderson. Thank you very much, members. All agreed? Great. Agenda item 2.2. Can I seek a proposer? Yeah. Is your card in? Yeah. That's you now. Go ahead, Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And it's just in relation to matters arising, I suppose, from the special meeting. Well, we're aware that there was a 2-week strike, and there's a bit of a backlog with bins and grass cutting and all that type of stuff. I have made it my business to try and find out from various staff where we are with street cleansing, where we are with missed bins, where we are in general with the whole environmental services department. And I have to say, it has raised quite a few concerns, in particular to street cleansing and the road sweepers. Now, I'm told that road sweepers have been very, very few and far between. The routes haven't been followed for weeks and weeks, and you just have to drive about the towns and the villages and the rural areas. Now, particularly get parochial, I've been asked about Warringstown and Donnacloney and Gamblestown, and indeed all the town centres as well. They're an absolute mess. Now, we come into the chamber tonight and there's a big box of Jubilee coins sitting here to hand out to primary schools. This is the Queen's Platinum Jubilee in a couple of weeks, and the Borough is an absolute mess. Now, I'm not blaming those who were on strike. They're very entitled to be on strike. And I don't think that's actually the issue. That's only scratching the surface, and I think maybe it's a good excuse to use that council staff were on strike for 2 weeks. But when you scratch the surface and look into it, the road sweepers haven't been moving 2 or 3 months. Now, is that COVID? Is that we're not able to recruit staff? What are we doing to try and address this crisis? Because it is a crisis. And I'm getting it day and daily from constituents, from party colleagues, and indeed from other party members across this chamber. There are rotas for street sweeping and for grass cutting that haven't been done. And I know staff are working incredibly hard and they're under incredible pressure. And I include all staff in that. Staff are coming in day and daily, but we just don't seem to have enough staff to do the job and to deliver the service that the ratepayer deserves. We need to get this department and grab it by the scruff of the neck. Somebody needs to, at a high level, and get it sorted out, because I'm sick, sore and tired of getting phone calls from members of the public in particular about the states of the area, and you can't even tell them when something's going to be sorted, when a street's going to be swept, or nothing. Their staff are doing their very best. Supervisors are doing their very best to try and accommodate some of those requests, but it's now impossible to get these things done. And when you look now, the Queen's Jubilee in 2 weeks and the state of this borough, you know, we should all hang our heads in shame, because it's a reflection of this council that we can't deliver simple services for our ratepayer. So, you know, I want to know what's going to be done. Something needs to be done urgently, very urgently. And I would even propose that we look at agency staff to bring them in to start cutting the grass. You just have to look at some of the villages. You can't even see the road signs where you are. because the grass is 2 feet high in some places. It's disgraceful. And there's no way of sugarcoating it. There's no other way. I'm phoning day and daily, different departments, and getting nowhere, getting absolutely nowhere. So I was loath to bring it to the chamber tonight, but I think it needs said. And I'll leave it at that for now. I don't know what other members think, but I think, do we need to bring in third-party staff to try and do like a one-off grass cutting exercise or a one-off street sweeping thing? Can we look at agency staff? Can we roll out more overtime? You know, whatever the cost of this is, we have to look at it and see what's available, because the staff that we have at the minute are worked to the bone and they can't keep up with the requests that are coming in. There's a whole litany of issues there. So what are we doing to address it? Because quite frankly, I'm not getting the answers.
Thank you very much, Councillor Baxter. I'm going to bring in Alderman Burns, and then we'll let Sean come in after that. Go ahead, Alderman Burns.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I would certainly agree with what Councillor Baxter has said there. No later than this morning, I was trying to get grass cut that's 2 foot high, and all we ever get is we don't have the staff at the moment. Well, that needs to be addressed, and I would certainly agree in the short term, we need to get, if we do have to bring in agency staff or whatever to get the grass cut on a first basis, and then the council staff can pick up after that. But I mean, you take it, we don't even lift the grass now, which is a disgrace as well. And if you cut 2 foot high grass and leave it lying, what sort of mess is that going to leave? So I certainly would agree there. And if Councillor Baxter is making that proposal, I'll certainly second it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we move on, I'm going to bring in Sean to hopefully maybe answer some of the questions that were coming before us.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, members, for the comments that you have raised. And I suppose what I would say at the outset is, obviously I appreciate the service in some parts of the Environmental Services Department is not at the standard that we would want it to be at the moment. However, we did have a Clean Neighbourhoods workshop last week, and as part of the discussion at that, I did outline a resource plan, which will include bringing in additional resources across a number of the functions within the department, both on a seasonal and to support daily operations. And that recruitment is live at the minute. We are working our way through that, and it is progressing well. And we would anticipate that those resources will be coming in. Some have already started, and others will be coming in over the next 4 to 6 week period between now and the end of June. I do take on board the members' comments, and if there's anything else over and above that we can do in the interim, I'm certainly happy to explore and investigate that. But just to make you aware that there is a resource plan, and that has been followed through. The recruitment is active and live, and offers have been made, and are working our way through that.
Thank you very much, Sean. I'm going to bring in Councillor Hanlon, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thanks, Sharon. I know I was at the workshop last week, and to be honest, I have to say I was disappointed in the attendance at it. You know, for an issue that gets such air of such importance for councillors, there was a very low attendance from across the board at the meeting. And as Sharon has said, she has given a good report to the committee last week around the number of additional staff coming in. One thing that I would say is actually not just to council, because I had to speak to the housing executive today about areas in Katy and Armagh about growth of grass, and they're facing the exact same issues. They're facing the exact same issues around bringing in staff to cover overtime as well. But to be honest, the answer I got from the housing executive was, well, we've got a report from CAFRE, or from some of the agencies, to tell us that the grass is growing a whole lot more over this next couple of weeks, and to expect this. Now, to be honest, that wasn't the answer that I wanted, nor was it the one that I was expecting. But what I do think is that I think we need to give the officers the time to let what we have now agreed. And as I said, it was, I suppose, for the first time in the lifetime of this council, I'm actually seeing a pathway through to tackle the issues in environmental services, be it bins, be it street cleansing, or be it grass cutting. I know I've had to contact both Sharon, Jonathan and Roger about streets not being swept at the weekends. But this isn't just something that's new to us. Take a look at the state of our play parks right across the borough, be it dog fouling, be it litter, and lack of maintenance. You know, it's all right spending hundreds of thousands of pounds in new play parks, but we don't in any way invest in upkeep. And that is something that I think we need to be addressing as well. I know it's a separate issue to the issue at hand, but look, I think what we need to do is give the officers the opportunity. They've set out a plan last week about how they're going to tackle the grass cutting, the bins and the street cleansing. And I think I'd be concerned about bringing in third-party contractors, especially whenever we have the staff and the additional resource there coming in to be able to do it.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I'm going to bring in Alderman Anderson, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and certainly what Councillor Baxter has brought up this evening, I certainly would concur with everything that he has said. I'm sure most of us, and not all of us, has been around the borough, has been around our town centres, and really what we're seeing is not something that we think we could promote as someone coming to pay a visit for whatever reason. But, you know, I keep saying first impressions are a lasting impression. And when you go around the town centres, and I actually went round today to have a look, and between weeds and grass, and I've had dog fouling reported to me as well, and a number of issues. And, you know, I and other councillors have advocated and tried to get what was the old style of looking after the town centres with hand carts. Now, I don't think it would cost a lot of money to put a person on there, should be casual or whatever, to go around our town centres, lift, litter, pick up weeds, pick up dog dirt. I can remember, I've been around long enough to remember hand cars going around our town centres, and you know, they were spotless. And I don't think it takes a lot to push those out again. It's something that I talked about on the Legacy Council. And when I come back to this council, we're still talking about it. And it looks as if we'll still be talking about it if nothing is done. I do know that when I get into conversation with council staff to try and get things done, they do their best, and I applaud them for that. I attended, or I was at the first workshop that Councillor O'Hanlon referred to. I didn't make the second one. But I am on record as saying that first workshop brought out some very positive points to act on, and I think that they should be acted on quickly to move this forward. We're in a time, a growing season with this heat and with the rainfall. Things are only going to get worse, and we need to get into the centre, get this sorted out, especially in our town centres, and get them cleaned up and make them like something that we're proud of. We keep talking about regenerating our town centres, coming out of COVID and such like, and we can't seem to get down to the basics of keeping the place clean. Road signs and everything else, grass growing up over them, you can't half see them. I even referred to my colleagues earlier on, there's a sign going into Portadown. It's the colour of this here, and you know, it doesn't stick out at me and doesn't stick out at anybody where you're arriving at. Signage, and I know Councillor McClellan has been very vocal on these points, but we need to start promoting our towns as good places to come, an attractive place to come, not just a place where we'll come and say, I'll not go back there, look at the state of that place. And as I said, first impressions are lasting impressions. And I would certainly support my colleague here tonight that we look If we can't get staff ourselves, that we look for agency or someone to come in and make a move straight away and get this problem solved, and then to follow down the line to ensure that it's there and will be looked after in future. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Anderson, and Councillor Greenfield, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for letting me in. And I also did attend the workshop the other night, and it was very useful and a lot of information, good plans there. But I think one of the main points is that it's probably going to be the end of June before a lot of these staff are in place. So I do agree with Councillor Baxter's proposal, Alderman Byrne seconded, about looking at some measure of how we get this grass cut in the short term. And Councillor Hamler has mentioned about other departments and other areas. I think we need to focus here in the council area. We don't need Caffrey to tell us the grass won't grow as quick in December, as opposed to knowing it grows quick at this time of year. I think we all know that. And unfortunately, again, this year, we've seen that we're in the same predicament with the grass cutting. But not only the grass cutting, just one thing I wanted to mention was even our flower beds. I think of Scarborough, which is usually very well upkept, seems to be just that the weeds are growing through a lot of the flower beds there. And I suppose just Councillor Baxter did mention Rhoda, and I had spoke to Jonathan, and certainly appreciated Sharon's phone call as well this week. But we did get an email back to say that Rhoda isn't available because of the staff shortage and stuff, which I think, we should all be Rhoda up to know what's going on to save us speaking so much back and forward. And if it doesn't go on that day, we can be updated that way, because when people are contacting us quite often, it's on the Rhoda to be done in the next 3 or 4 days, and there's an awful lot of phone calls back and forth. But certainly, I would be in supportive of looking at some other way of the grass being cut in the short term. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Greenfield, and Councillor Nelson at home.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just as opposed to start by thanking staff in our environmental health department. I know that they're very responsive whenever I raise an issue with them in an area with them. And indeed, the workers there that we have are working incredibly hard. But the reality is that we need more. And until we sort that, then this issue is going to remain. And look, our members attended the workshops also, but the reality is the public are not aware of what we're doing. They don't know what our plan is, and they deserve to know. They deserve some reassurance. Because ultimately, as we all know, it's the public that are paying the rates to fund these services and rightly expect them to be done and to be done properly. So it's great having workshops, but what we need on the back of that is an awareness around what's being done, the timeline of it's being done, when improvements should be notable so that the public can be kept informed. Grass cutting isn't usually our responsibility. It's mainly the responsibility of DFI and NIHE, but the cleansing absolutely is. I have been in contact with residents throughout the central Craigavon area this week and last week, whereby bins and estates are overflowing, litter picks haven't been happening, deep cleansing is needed on the footpath. And indeed, when I bring that forward, it is being done by the team, but we need a regular rota where it's being done weekly. Glass and play parks, litter and muggas, all of those things have been coming to me more regularly now. So we definitely need something done. Another issue too is our bins. I'm having where individual bins aren't being lifted on runs or being half emptied. And again, yes, I'm going back to the department. We're getting those picked up again later and shortly. But again, it's something that we really need to get a handle on moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Cosby.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And again, I think we all get a sense of frustration around this issue. And it's one that's not going to go away, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. And, I know certainly from our perspective, we'll not make an apology for raising it in this forum as we have done on previous occasions, because, workshops are fine, talking to housing executive and hearing that they've got the same issue. We can't do anything about their issues. We can do something about our own issues. And that's where my focus is. But I also do at times feel like as council, we don't always necessarily use our own weight either to bear down on other public sectors or other public authorities to be stepping up to fulfil their roles and responsibilities as well, because DFI roads have been mentioned, Housing Executive have been mentioned. Housing Executive actually are one of the better organisations at doing the grass cutting when you ring them, in fairness to them. Road service, we know, just are very difficult to get them to do anything. And the fact is, they've cut huge swathes of Portadown the other day, and you would think it was cut with a hatchet, because, I think members of the community actually have had to go out and tidied up because it was left so long. Councillor McElrath talked about Charles Street. I was across West Street the other day, even down through, into portions of the town centre have just been left. If you come into the town centre, anywhere from the traffic lights, just at Country Fried Chicken there, heading down towards Castle Street, a part of that pavement is probably almost about 40% overgrown with ivy and trees hanging over from a piece of public land on the other side of it. It's an appalling state at the town centre. Every week I have a business or residents on complaining about the state of their town centres, where we have public art in West Street at the top of Jervis Street, West Street junction there, forever ringing about getting bins emptied because they're not put on a proper rota. The staff, and I cannot say, anything other than good things about our staff who are on the ground firefighting these issues as we bring them forward. But there seems to be, another level of issues here in the department, and resources is one of them. But I don't think it's all resourcing issues. And I'm very conscious we're still in open session, so I'll say no more than that. But it's hugely difficult for staff on the ground every single day. Today, 3 cases before 10 o'clock this morning in relation to litter, fly tipping or whatever it might be, with me today. And so we're having to chase officers who then aren't maybe necessarily able to get a response or get something done. And then the member of the public's coming back to us. So it reflects badly on the council, it reflects badly on elected members, and it looks like nobody knows what's going on or what anybody's doing. And, we owe a service, and a good quality service, to our ratepayers across the borough, no matter where they're from, but in particular, our businesses who are paying enormous amounts of rates in our town centres. And quite honestly, they're not getting the service from this council they deserve. We can have all of the, wonderful programs of events. We can have all of the wonderful ideas around cities of culture, around whatever else, other initiatives we might come up with. Truth be told, we're not getting the ABCs right in ABC. And that is fundamentally where we are coming unstuck as a council. Basic services are not being delivered to a good standard across the board. And to be honest, our staff who are working hard are under immense pressure. And I'm conscious that every time I pick up the phone, that I might just be adding a wee bit more pressure to try and get an issue resolved. And that's unfair on elected members having to pick up the phone nearly every day. And I note that some comments were made just last week about, in terms of, and I'm conscious some of this was in confidential session, so, but I'm conscious of the fact that there was a discussion around member involvement in strategic versus operational. And quite honestly, I find myself having to respond to constituent cases, inquiries that focus solely on operational matters because we're not getting them right. I would love to spend my day looking at strategic because that's where the focus could and should be for members if everything else was running smoothly. Truth be told, it's not. So I'm sorry to be blunt and harsh about it, but I think you can hear we're back again another month, and we're having a similar conversations we had for the last 2 or 3 months, or maybe since December from a particular report was brought. So, I am just conscious of that. And in relation to the working group, I accept that there's a pile of work going on there, Sharon, and the team are working on that. And I accept that we also have a piece of transformation to go through within environmental services. But that doesn't fix the problems that we face today. It doesn't fix the constituent queries and inquiries that we have now. And I think we're ill prepared to deal with it. And that's my honest assessment of it. And I think, we can talk about the grass growing. Yeah, we can. But we don't have to accept that it's just going to happen and we just have to let it happen. No, we don't. We've got levers that we can use to try and mitigate against some of these issues. And it's a very different set of circumstances than finding ourselves in a strike situation. So in that frame of mind, I would be saying we need to go, and I don't care who cleans our streets. I really don't. I don't care whether we have to bring in a service that's going to do it for 6 weeks till we get all of our people in place, and then we say thanks very much, that was great, you've done a good job for 6 weeks. But we've got to do it, and it's no longer acceptable just to say we're working through this process, and we will get there. Things will get better. Well, not today. They won't. So thank you, Lord Mayor. You were very gracious for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Cosby. Councillor Baxter, do you want to come back in?
Yes, Lord Mayor, I just want to make a point. I suppose Councillor Cosby's made the points on the previous speakers. But Councillor Hanlon has this thing about, he keeps bringing it back that it's an attack on staff. When quite clearly it's not an attack on our staff. Our staff work extremely hard. The problem is, as Councillor Nelson says, we ain't got enough staff. That seems to be the issue. And I appreciate, I was at the Clean Neighbourhoods workshop, the first one. And as Councillor Alderman Anderson said, there was great stuff coming out of that, but that's a process. It's a timely process. It's going to take time. This is about now. This is about take a walk around the borough tonight and see the shape of the place. The street sweepers aren't working on the grass that we cut and look after hasn't been done. So while we are recruiting staff, that's great. I'm all on for it. And the more the merrier and the quicker the better. But they're not going to be here this week. They're certainly not going to be here before the Queen's Jubilee. And I think that's a very important point, that this all needs sorted before then. And if that means taking on agency staff in the interim period for the next couple of weeks to drive a couple of sweepers and to get a landscape gardening crowd in to cut the grass that needs cut, that's my proposal, and that still stands. But it's certainly not an attack of staff by any means or any way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. Councillor Nicholson.
Yes, Lord Mayor, and thanks for letting me in. And I too took part in that workshop where Sharon sort of outlined, obviously, the strategic direction for the environmental group. In fact, it's funny, I've only been on the committee for, this year when you were Lord Mayor, so because obviously I took your place. And as I understand, I remember these conversations have been going on quite a while. So I think Sharon has to be sort of, you have to say that Sharon's done great to get to this point. They've actually got a roadmap in relation to this. But again, I do agree it's a long-term solution. But I suppose the question that I have, Lord Mayor, and again, like this week myself, I be in contact with staff too, and we do have great staff on the ground. They do their best, and they are spread thin, be it holidays, be it sick, be it COVID, be it whatever it may be. But and you have to wait maybe a day or two to get bins emptied, where maybe you would expect that sort of that afternoon. But I think it is difficult at the minute, and I suppose in my eyes, and I can understand where members are going from with third party or outside contractors, what do you really want to call them? But do they exist? Because all we're hearing at the minute right across the board, Lord Mayor, is there's staff shortages in every sector. Every sector. So look, we had it in Armagh, if you like, an outside contractor, Bryson House, we are now no longer with us. So, I actually don't know myself, do these people exist? Do these companies exist that'll come in on Monday and do it for 2 weeks and out? That's my question, Lord Mayor. As I say, I'm not disagreeing that there needs to be something short term, but I would rather than sort of go down the route and make a proposal that we don't actually know that these companies exist, leave it to the officers to come up with a solution. They've come up with a long-term solution, but I would be of the opinion, leave it to our officers. That's what they're there for, to find a short-term solution. In particular, it's correct, the cleanliness of our areas are so important. Like after, I went into Armagh City one night in the dark to pull a weed because I didn't want to somebody see me do it.
because you know these people get the photographs taken when they're doing it. You know, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. Look at me, I'm great. That's not what I'm about, Lord Mayor. You know, but the bottom line is, you know, it is a problem. But in where I'm coming from is, do these companies exist? Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Firstly, again, similar to other members, like to pay a tribute to our staff. Similar to yourself, Lord Mayor, I would deal with council staff on a regular basis, and the amount of staff who would bend over backwards to help people with constituency issues, and like environmental service in particular, is numerous. I think staff are working very hard to catch up on work that was missed due to the 2-week strike, and I think staff are doing that for the most part. We've spoken about issues with environmental services. There are numerous issues in environmental services, some or most of which council are tackling. We've already done the likes of bringing the Armagh bins in-house, as Councillor Nicholson suggested. We're working to harmonise the council routes. We're working to harmonise job descriptions. We're working to harmonise the rotas. And that all really needs to be done before we can say, we've been successful on this issue. But it's good to see that work is being done. Will hopefully be completed by the end of this financial year. So these are big issues and they need sort of big solutions. So the likes of Alderman Anderson's comment about bringing in a fellow with a handcart, I don't think that's really going to help anyone. But as officers have outlined, there is a load of work coming on with regards to the additional recruitment and those additional rotas. I'd actually like to back up the point made by Councillor Nelson about communication. There is a need for greater communication, both from officers within council to the elected members, so we can be the voice on the ground to let people know what's going on, and also council as a corporate body to residents. I know there's additional communication levels put in place with regards to a 2-week strike. I think as that could almost be carried on to let members and residents of the area aware of what is going on. I think that would go a long way to soothe, any anger out there with regards to that, making sure services are being carried out in line with those rotas, and indeed even greater publicity about the rotas and when areas will be done. I think will have a great benefit to the borough as a whole and improve our performance standards. In terms of the proposal with regards to the employment of agency staff with an unknown cost, with an unknown duration, and when it's unknown terms and conditions, I don't think it's not one we could agree with right now. However, certain things there, as has been discussed by officers with regards to maybe the potential for overtime and so on, is something that can be explored, and certainly we would explore that. But maybe I don't think agency staff is the right way to go at this time. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Members, we have 3 more speakers. I'm not going to take any more. I'll bring in Sean afterwards, and then we'll go back to Councillor Baxter to make his proposal. So we're going to bring in Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And I totally understand Councillor Baxter's frustration over this past probably couple of years. I've never been as involved in as much operational services as I have been, and every councillor is the same, and month after month these issues have been raised. It actually has got to a stage where people in the community are asking if the council have stopped street cleansing, which is very disappointing to hear and actually quite frustrating. And I know the whole issues of the grass cutting and refuse services and all of that there. We do have brilliant teams of staff out there, but I think as Councillor Cosby says, very much of them are actually firefighting just to try and keep on top of things. Obviously our senior staff have been listening to us month after month in relation to this, and clearly things need to be done. In relation to the hand carts, and I'm going to go back to that because in the days of the hand carts, and Alderman Anderson is 100% right, in the days of the old hand carts, no matter what town we were talking about, I as a councillor, and I've been a councillor for 20 years now, never had to complain about street cleansing because we had dedicated people who knew the towns and who knew the villages, and we're doing it on a daily basis and taking different rotas on a different day and around the towns and doing the work and keeping the towns neat and tidy. And it's really since that started to change, in my view, that our town centres have deteriorated. But on a positive note, and you know, obviously, basing my comments on last week's meeting in relation to the Clean Neighbourhood Workshop, I wanted to attend that because month after month, as councillors, were constantly haranguing our senior officers in relation to it. And I must say, I did find it very encouraging. I was all psyched up before it, but then when Sharon gave her presentation, and I would like to commend Sharon for that presentation and the work that her and her team have done, because as others have said, this takes time, but time's really not of the essence here at the minute, and that's why we want to keep the pressure on and where Councillor Baxter's coming from. But in relation to the overall strategy and in relation to the number of staff that is being proposed to appoint between casual and full-time, and sort of looking after all of the staff and issues, I was encouraged to see that paper, and I think it would be very beneficial. In fact, it probably was something that maybe we could have brought tonight so that all members would have maybe got a brief 10-minute presentation from Sharon on it, because I think that would really bring us up to speed to exactly where we want to be and the number of staff, because there are resource issues, massive resource issues. And I believe if this is carried through with the energy of Sharon and her team, this is going to make a massive difference to street cleansing, to refuge collection, and to all of those issues. But as we try to defend the council at the minute, it's very, very difficult when we take a look at the state of our town centres as in villages, and it's right across the area. Councillor Baxter mentioned about the sweeping side of things. That has been an issue and has been a big issue, and hopefully, you know, we'll get answers on that. But this particular proposal that Sharon has brought from the Clean Neighbourhood Services Workshop, in my view, has been very encouraging, and I'm looking forward to that rolling out. But as I said at the meeting last week, if it's seen that we get more staff but things don't change, well, then we'll have to take a look at what is going on. And I think we all know that if things don't improve. But I would like to think that next month, obviously we would like it sooner, and Sharon's aware that we would like it sooner, but you can't speed up recruitment. But hopefully there will be enough people who will apply for these jobs, will avail of these jobs, and that will get feet on the ground, because that's what we need right across ABC. And on the negative note, yes, we all know the big issues are there, but on that positive note, I would like to commend Sharon and her team for listening, for taking on board, and the whole transformation side of things should make a massive improvement. And that's where we as councillors will have full commitment and involvement in how we want to see how our town centres are kept clean in the future. And I was glad to hear that we as councillors will have an opportunity in that. But I think we need I'm in on that positive note of what's hopefully going to happen in the very, very near future.
Thank you, Councillor Barry. Councillor Hagan, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yeah, this is an interesting but a very frustrating conversation to listen to. There are obviously, and the members have pointed this out, there's been issues around HR and other things, and lack of staff to deal with what we think should be the acceptable level of action around these really key issues in our borough. But they've been there for a long time. And my concern tonight is that this is being framed around a Jubilee event, which is this month. So we're now talking about putting forward a proposal for an unknown cost with an unknown tender process to get the streets clean for the Jubilee. So I'm at a bit of a loss, because when I attended the workshop, as frustrated as I am about the area that I represent and how unclean it is and how difficult it is to get the services that I want for our constituents, Sharon and her team have laid out a plan that by the end of June, we should be in a place to start really putting the extra staff, feet on the street, and people in place to do this job. So I am greatly concerned that there's a proposal being put forward in front of us with no cost implications, no idea of how it starts, when it ends, and complete lack of detail, and I would suggest a complete lack of thought, because I don't even know if this is based around the Jubilee. Does that decide what areas get cleaned? I mean, yes, that's a rhetorical question, but it's pretty shocking that this is actually being brought forward tonight in the context that it is. So I would have real concerns. So I'd ask people to pay a bit more attention to what's being said in these workshops, because we are all frustrated. Every single party is frustrated. Every single member is frustrated on behalf of their own constituents. But the plan is in place. I would ask Sharon, and I'm sure she's well aware of this, whatever staff we have, to put all hands to the wheel in the meantime to help us all. But in reality, the plan is in place for the end of June. If we have enough staff on board, we can start putting this into place. I don't think this is the moment for knee-jerk reactions. I think this is the time to stay calm, do as much as we can in our areas, and just get the plan into practice as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And Alderman Moodtree, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And if I can just start by saying I was unable to attend the workshop last week because I was abroad on holiday and couldn't get a link. And I did attend other Zoom meetings when I was abroad. So I don't need lectures from Councillor O'Hanlon about absence from it, especially when he hasn't set his backside in his chamber for 2 years. It's depressing that we've had to spend 40 minutes on this, but it has to be said, and we need a forum to say it. I don't believe that elected members are being kept up to speed on what's happening in relation to cleanliness within the borough, street sweeping, cutting the grass, or whatever. We just don't know what resources there at the moment. And we don't know what the potential resource will be in the next number of weeks. Now, Councillor Nelson put it very well when she said that. That was the point that she exactly made. We don't know what to tell the constituents because we can't tell them what's going to be done or what's not going to be done. These issues have run on for years. And if there was a workshop last week, and I'd be very keen to get the detail of it, it's probably the only one I've missed in the last number of years. And I have an interest in this. I'm forced to have an interest in it because I care about my town. And if we can have the papers all in good, and if we're told that the resource will be in 6 weeks, well, that's fine. But after the rain we've had today, if we've a bit of heat at all, there'll be a real growth spurt. So there will, not in 6 weeks, in a week's time. And we need to be proactive in relation to this. We need to move it on. So I want to know if there's rota out there, what is the rota? Share it with members. Don't keep us in the dark. And in relation to the Queen's Jubilee, yes, of course, that's a focal point for a lot of us to have things looking well, but it's not the focal point. Every quarter of every part of the borough needs to look good, not for the Queen's Jubilee, because it's the right way that things should be. We had a body blow last week in Lurgan in relation to the closure of the Danske Bank in September. So the least we can do for the traders in Lurgan and the people in Lurgan to try and help to keep them is to keep the town centre clean and pristine at all times. So it's going to be difficult enough in the days ahead, and as we head into what is more than likely a recession. So, Lord Mayor, I would ask that members are informed, members are kept up to speed, and I would also ask that the Chief Executive give us his opinion on what hope that he can give us as we move forward.
Thank you, Alderman Moodtree. Councillor Holland, I know you were mentioned there and you put your hand up. Do you want to come back?
Not even going to go there. But Lord Mayor, can I ask maybe for those who didn't attend the workshop, maybe if Sharon could take 5 minutes and articulate the resource that she has identified and intends to put into this. I know we've prolonged the discussion, but you know what? Some people are saying that members aren't updated. This is a good way of letting everyone know what's going on. It's also a good way of getting the message out to the public to let them know what we're doing. But I think that it's important that for those who didn't attend, be it remotely or in person. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I'm going to bring over to Sharon.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thanks members for the comments. And I suppose what I would say is that, and reiterate, is that we have undertaken a resource assessment of the needs of the department, particularly around waste and street cleansing, and we are actively moving forward in terms of bringing those resources in a timely manner. Additional resources will be coming in to the department in the time frame that I have alluded to, and that will include work on the special initiatives, which will be the rural roads and town centres, and also on the cleansing and waste management functions. I do take the point that members have said around ensuring that members are kept up to date on this, and we are proposing to establish the first meeting of the Environmental Services Board on the 1st of June. So I am content to bring an update through there, and then we'll also have committee on the 8th of June. But there are, you'll appreciate members, what I can advise is there are a good number of offers that have been made posts, and those are just working through the HR processes. And I'm sure you'll appreciate I'm limited in what I can say in open forum on this, but I'm very happy to pick up with the members afterwards.
Thank you very much, Sean. I'm going to go back to Councillor Baxter. Can you make a summary of your proposal, please?
Happy to, Lord Mayor, and I think, you know, some members maybe did miss the point, maybe on purpose or not, but I don't think we need to go down that rabbit hole possibly. But look, I appreciate the work that Sharon's done on this, you know, and the particular issue that people are talking about. But what I'm talking about is not the recruitment that's going to start taking place in 6 weeks. It's the month of June, which is one of the biggest growing months in the year. That's where we're at. It's current, what we're doing currently. So what I proposed is that we look at how we staff that on a very, very temporary basis to get the grass cut and to get a few sweepers into the villages, into the town centres over the next number of weeks before the recruitment starts at the end of June. Now, I appreciate, you know, to go out to tender and all the private companies not going to happen in the next few days or the next couple of weeks, and that would be a lengthy process again. But surely we use agency staff. Can we bring in agency staff or casuals, or can people be deployed from different parts of this organisation to try and sort out the crisis that we're in now? And I appreciate, and we spoke after the first Clean Neighbourhood Renewal meeting, I spoke to Sharon privately, and we said about the timeline, and she said, look, you know, that's where it is, and I accept that because it is a lengthy process and we'll do it as quickly as possible. But that, my whole point tonight, and the whole point I brought this up, is the here and now. And I know Councillor Harkin took issue with the Jubilee, was making the point, it's in and around the same time. And that's when the focus, because so many people will be out at street parties and so many people will be in the towns at parades and pageants. And what are they going to see? They're going to see this high grass and the weeds, and they're going to see in and around Lurgan Show on the first weekend in June too. All those things are taking place in Armagh Show. That's the issue. It's the next 3 or 4 weeks. So it's a very short term. It's a very short term fix. You know, and my proposal is coming, like, get agency staff in for these next couple of weeks to sort that out while this other process runs in tandem. So it's certainly not a dig at Sharon in terms of what she's brought forward. I'm glad to see that coming forward, that roadmap on out of here. And I mentioned the first meeting we were at was a very productive meeting. Alderman Anderson said the same thing, and I think all members agree. And it's certainly not about staff, it's about these next few weeks. I think it can't be any more simple than that. And, you know, that's what my proposal is. And then over the next couple of weeks, can we look at agency staff to come in, or people deployed from different parts of the organisation to sort out the problem we have now currently?
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. I'm going to bring Sean back in.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And I suppose I just wanted to clarify one point there, that all the recruitment has started and we are moving our way through that. And actually, you know, we will have, as I said, we have offers made and the staff will starting to be streaming and starting the service. But look, I do take the point that Councillor Baxter has raised, and if there's anything more we can look and do in terms of overtime or agency, we'll try and do that in that period. But offers are being made and the staff will start to stream into the service. Some have already, and others will stream in between now and the end, mid and late June. But if there's anything more in this very short-term period, I'm certainly happy to look at that with the team and update members further on that.
Okay, thank you, members. We have a proposal by Councillor Baxter on second by Alderman Burns. So we all agreed? Great, thank you, members. Move on. Okay, agenda item 2.2. Can I seek a proposal seconder that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 25th of April be taken as read and approved as a correct record? Proposed by Alderman Burns. Second by Councillor Savage. We all agreed? Councillor McLellan, go ahead.
Yes, Lord Mayor, thank you for letting me in. And the matter I wish to raise is C193/2022, and it's under the title of the rollout of boundary signage. And Lord Mayor, I raised this at the last meeting under AOB, and in my remarks I made reference to the fact that officers had given an assurance of the end of April as a cut-off time scale or as a target in terms of getting this scheme across the 29 locations in a good to-go scenario. And I raise it very simply again this evening, Lord Mayor, in the context that it would be good to have an assurance from council officers that we are indeed in a go situation and that the rollout on the ground will be happening imminently on this. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to bring in Jonathan Hayes, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and good evening, members. Yes, in relation to Councillor Clan's query, yes, I'm happy to report that the department have now approved the location of all of the signs across the borough. We have instructed, last week we actually instructed the commencement of the manufacture of the signs, and we are waiting on the contractor to give us an updated programme in relation to commencement of the erection of the signs. So just to confirm that all locations have been agreed by the department. Signs are being manufactured at the moment, and we're waiting on an update from our contractor in relation to the installation of those signs. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jonathan. Councillor Michael, you wouldn't mind hitting your mute button just in case you have a wee slip up. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Obviously, we'll go as normal, take them now, or we can take them as we come along. Okay. Agenda item 4, committee minutes. I seek a proposal and seconder that the minutes of the Environmental Services Committee held on the 3rd of May 2022 be taken as read and approved as correct record. Proposed by Alderman Kennedy and second by Councillor Greenfield. We all agreed? Agreed. Thank you, members. 4.2. Can I seek a proposal and seconder that the minutes of the Planning Regulatory Services Committee held on the 4th of May 2022 be taken as read and approved as a correct record. Councillor Lavery, you were not there. Councillor Nicholson, you held the chair.
I propose, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Nicholson, can I get a seconder by a committee member, please? Second by Alderman Twyvell. You all agreed? Thank you, members. 4.3. Can I seek a proposer and a seconder that the minutes of the Leisure and Community Service Committee held on the 9th of May 2022 be taken as read and approved as a correct record? Councillor Huckey, and you are the chair of committee.
Yep, happy to propose, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. And can I get a seconder from a member who was in the committee?
Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Park. And Alderman Wilson, you want to raise something?
Yeah, thanks. It's just a quick query. I don't know, there's maybe nobody here to answer tonight, but I've just been approached by a few people wondering, will the £1 swims be making an appearance again in this summer season? It's maybe in a minute and I have missed it, which wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility, but thanks for any info.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. Going to bring in Jonathan Hayes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I actually have a schedule for summer schemes to go out to members, hopefully tomorrow, and all detail of summer schemes will be presented to members tomorrow for their consideration. I'm happy to take any feedback from the schedule. It's a detailed schedule for all summer schemes for this year. So again, members, that will go out to use tomorrow for consideration, and any comments, happy to take them back from members. But hopefully by the end of the week, and then we're planning to do a PR exercise the following week. But thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Looking forward to it. Agenda item 4.4. Can I see a proposal and seconded that the minutes of the Economic Development Regeneration Committee held on the 10th of May 2022 be taken as read and approved as a correct record? Councillor McAlinden, you're the chair of committee.
So proposed, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And Alderman Mitri, you're the vice chair.
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, members. We all agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Agenda item 4.5. Can I seek a proposal and seconded that the minutes of the Governance and Resources Committee held on the 11th of May 2022 be taken as read and approved as a correct record. Councillor McClellan, you're the chair.
Yes, Lord Mayor, happy to propose.
Thank you, Councillor. And Alderman Twyble, you're the vice chair.
And I'm happy to second, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. Members, Councillor Flaherty, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I've just one matter arising out of that, if you indulge me. It's just I wanted to make reference to the sitting, sort of ad hoc sitting of the health working group that was held on the 18th of the month. And in ways, I want to honestly really thank Elaine Gillespie and Gillian Tobbing, and in particular Jenny Dunlop. Jenny put a huge amount of work into preparation for that meeting, which was vitally important. And those of us who did attend, I think really did get quite a lot out of it. It was to do with the review of urgent and emergency care services in Northern Ireland. This is something that will affect every living one of our citizens across the Southern Trust. It was very useful, and I would like my thanks to the officers put on record, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flaherty. No more lights on. We all agreed. Thank you, members. Agenda item 5.1 to 3. Do we have any comments or response? No, thank you. Moving on to 5.4 to 5.6. Correspondence for Nolan. However, does anybody have any comments? Councillor Cosby.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and appreciate that. Just, I am noting, happy to note the items of correspondence, but just on that issue of correspondence, members will recall that in December, in the Leisure Community Service Committee, it was agreed by the committee to send a letter off to the Justice Minister in relation to some of the issues we've had across the borough relating to knives, and looking at trying to put a scheme together to help tackle that issue and to get some illegally held knives off the street. And I do note that Seamus and his team sent that letter in early January, and to date we have had no correspondence that I am aware of from the Justice Minister, even after it being raised on more than one occasion in this chamber since then. And I wonder, can we then further write to the Justice Minister, ask, is she even actually interested in the safety and welfare of children and young people in our borough, or is she only interested in bigger projects? Because she seems to just have ignored us for 6 months, and that is I guess unfair. I note that there is a similar scheme being rolled out in Uri Morning Down, and that they are working through some issues in relation to getting the manufacture of some of the steel bins that would be available to dispose of the knives. So I'm hoping maybe once they have that issue sorted, maybe by then, who knows, the Minister might have actually decided to write back to us, but maybe some of her colleagues on this council would take a bit of interest and maybe prompt her a wee bit just to get something back to us. Who knows? Since one of them's now an MLA, he might have the ear of the Minister maybe more so than the rest of them here. So maybe if he's listening in, if he misses us that much, maybe he might take that on for us. Who knows? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cosby. Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, thanks, Lord Mayor. And it's according to the item 5.5, the reply from DFC. I just want to record, Lord Mayor. Obviously, I asked for that letter to be written to the Minister in relation to the emergency fuel payment scheme and poverty, the fuel poverty that's going on at the minute, and the rising energy costs, etc. But I think the letter leaves a lot to be desired. It doesn't say a lot, Lord Mayor, and it doesn't basically give any roadmap, direction, or whatever. Whereas we know there's 300 million sitting there, which the Minister can use by way of a previous scheme, which he obviously implemented through the Bryson House. and why she isn't doing it, I just do not know. But look, Lord Mayor, I just wanted my sort of disappointment of that reply to the letter. Lord Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Lavery, you still want to come back in?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. To be honest, I was a bit reluctant to do so, to rise to the comments of Councillor Cosby, which was fairly apparent in terms of saying that the Justice Minister doesn't care about the welfare of children and so on. As Councillor Cosby will aware, whilst Naomi has been Justice Minister, there's been 5 bits of legislation passed through, in particular with regards to domestic violence, making what you call stalking a specific offence, and various other pieces of legislation which help to improve people's lives. And to be honest, I think everyone saw what that was all about when Councillor Cosby made reference to likes of MLAs or something. I think it's more to do with a previous election in which the DUP didn't do too well in, rather than anything else. And the fact, while we're on that topic, I'd actually encourage Councillor Cosby, if he is speaking to his local MLA colleagues, that he does encourage them to actually do their jobs, elect an assembly speaker so we can get on with the real issues, such as outlined today with the correspondence about fuel, heating payments and the likes of additional free school meals over summer. I'd hope that his DUP colleagues would actually do their jobs, saying that they did sign up to take their salaries. So if Councillor Cosby could pass on that bit of correspondence to his own party colleagues, that'd be greatly appreciated by both myself and I think all of the residents of Northern Ireland, because I think we deserve better than DUP intransigence. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to bring in Seamus.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just picking up on the point on the letter that has been requested from Department of Justice and the Minister, just to confirm that the item has been requested, has been chased, but there has been a response into Council. That response will be put on as an item of correspondence in through next month's committee and can be circulated with members in advance of that.
Thank you very much, Seamus. Councillor Cosby, you want to come in?
Yes, and I note the barbs from Councillor Lavery. He's clearly still sure that he wasn't the candidate for the election because he would have been at Stormont by now, but hey ho. He has to sit with me for the rest of the term. Councillor Lavery, I'm desperately sorry to put you through it. But however, we all have our crosses to bear. I guess I'm yours for now. But Seamus, can I ask then, if that is on file, when did it come in? And why could it not have been put in as an addendum to this item? It's not as if there's a whole pile on the papers this evening.
Over. Go ahead, Seamus. Thank you.
No, thank you, Lord Mayor, and fair question being asked. I actually had, in honesty, had the paper here as in response to the issue being raised. It is dated the 3rd of May. I need to check where that letter has went and why it's not on this evening at Council. I'm not sure at this point why that's the case.
Thank you very much, Seamus. Going to bring in Councillor Macaulay, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. No, it's just really 5.4 correspondence from the Department of Education, really the free school meals. Just welcome the response to that. I know a few of my party colleagues have been doing a lot of work on the uniform grant eligibility criteria and the free school meals as well. But with the rise of cost of living and inflation and things here at the moment, I think that is very imperative that goes ahead, that review, and I would certainly be encouraging them to keep moving on. That is a very important issue for families, and I really do think that it's important enough to get moving on as soon as possible. But thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Macaulay. Councillor Cosby, keep it brief, please. Thank you.
Well, I will, Lord Mayor, but just on the basis, just to say, that I'm not totally thrilled by the response that I got. The fact is something has been here for some 3 weeks, almost 3 weeks. It hasn't found its way either to the committee or to the papers of council on an issue that has been raised more than once in the floor of this chamber. And, you know, I find it difficult to believe that we don't know where things are or how they've not found their way to this forum. I mean, we're running a council here. And, you know, that's for me a fairly basic thing. I do accept that sometimes things go wrong at times, and you know, but this is not, you know, an issue that's just been raised once or set aside and things like that. And the fact that we now know that something has been with us for nearly 3 weeks, but yet hasn't actually found its way to the papers. And I'm looking at the papers this evening, and the set of council papers that I've seen from I've been here in the last 7 years, I think, we're looking at them. But yeah, it surprises me somewhat.
James, you want to come back in?
Yes, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just to pick up on this particular point, this letter, this response to council is my responsibility. It was an area that was a request that was made through committee that I'm responsible for. The request when it was initially made, the officers did diligently request a response from DOJ. There was subsequently a chaser contact made to request the response, and then finally the response has come in. The detail as to what has happened in relation to the delay and the letter being before members is an issue that I do need to go and check and confirm back to members what has happened. I would hope that it's an unusual representation of how we would complete our work, but I do apologise to members for that being the case, but would come back with information in terms of explaining why and how, and be endeavouring to make sure that it's not repeated. So thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Seamus. I'm going to bring in Alderman Burns.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I would like to welcome the letter of 5.6 in the correspondence. Last month we got notification that they were going to bring in waiting restrictions in areas around Kennel Street, and we asked if we'd write back to them and see about bringing it into Kennel Street, because it's a main route in now for buses and things like that, and there's always a bottleneck, and some of the cars actually park half on the footpath, which block it for pram users. So I'm delighted now that they're going to speak to the residents to see about making that a no waiting area during 8 a.m. to 6:15 p.m. And thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Burns. I know we've lobbied hard for a long time for that there. Okay, members, moving on. Agenda item 6, schedule of documents requiring corporate seal. Items for approval 6.1 to 6.4. Can I get a proposer and seconder to agree to sign and seal all aforementioned documents on block? Proposed by Alderman Anderson and second by Alderman Burns. You all agreed? Thank you, members. Okay, members, moving on to confidential business. I seek a proposer and seconder to go into committee for consideration of the confidential items of business. Proposed by Alderman Kennedy, seconded by Councillor McClelland. We all agreed. Thank you, members. Members and listeners to the audio feed, in accordance with Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, we will now be moving into confidential session of the Council. This means that we'll be turned off the public audio feed of the meeting. This will be returned when the meeting is restarted. Can I ask ACT officers to please turn off the audio feed and confirm when the confidential section of this meeting can proceed? can continue with the meeting, please. Thank you very much. Agenda item 10, any other relevant business? I'm going to bring in Alderman Burns regarding Banbridge Tourist Information Centre. Alderman Burns.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I, like yourself, have had a number of communications with regards to the Tourist Information Centre in Banbridge. We used to have one in the Old Town Hall, in the basement, or the downstairs in the Old Town Hall, and it was closed during COVID, and then it has not been reopened. With the opening of Game of Thrones, we are seeing more people in town centres, in our town centre, and it was handy for people to pop in and get information. Older people using buses now, they get off the bus in the town centre, there's nowhere for information if they need it. And I would like to know, is it going to be opened, when it's going to be opened, or what we can do to provide tourist information in the town centre. And just before anybody misconstrues it, it's not having a go at any tourism officer or whatever, because Brian, Shane and Rosemary and their team have been working very hard in Banbridge with the councillors over this past number of years. So it's just to find out about provision of tourist information. We want people to come into the town, but we also want information when they get there. There's no point in having one on the outskirts of town, because then they don't have to come into the town centre. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Alderman Burns. I'm going to bring in Olga.
Thank you, Alderman Burns. And the Tourist Information Centre in the Town Hall did close as part of the COVID pandemic, but also it was identified when the members were looking at the efficiencies that had been made in the organisation at that particular period of time. So that was a decision that was taken to close the facility. In terms of tourist information, the demand for information has changed, where a lot of people do now use their information through mobile devices, and we recognise that access to information is very important. But we can bring further information in terms of how we are providing tourist information to the next committee meeting.
Thank you very much. And Brian, you've got your hand up there.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Alderman Burns, for the question. So, and apologies to you, Lord Mayor, there was a similar question over the weekend in this regard. So, as Olga said, members will recall at the start of the COVID pandemic, there was a process to identify efficiencies to offset the significant economic shock at that time. There was a lot of consultation with members in terms of individual projects and budget lines, and the visitor information services were identified as an agreed efficiency at that time. The saving identified was in the region of £250,000 in recurring costs. And again, some of the staff who were servicing that facility left at that time on a voluntary basis. So this saving was adopted and removed from the annual budgets. The result now is a reconfigured service. So this is a particular impact in Armagh, the Visitor Information Centre, and Banbridge, the Visitor Information Centre, where both are located. Currently, in respect of Old Town Hall, the upstairs facility operates 10 hours per week to host meetings and functions for groups across Banbridge and that part of the borough. An options paper is due to come to Economic Development Committee in June with a bit more detail on this, along with another tourism facility that was referenced at that time in terms of efficiencies. So similar to what Seamus said earlier, an option's been looked at in line with other council facilities and buildings in terms of delivering the service in a more efficient, cost-effective way. So at the moment, there is tourist information at F.E. McWilliams Centre, and again, looking at a similar operation in Armagh. And it's important to say, as Olga said too, this, as we looked at the efficiency at the time, there was context to this, and I take Alderman Burns' point in respect of a lot of local people will use the facility for local information. But there has been a fundamental shift over the last 5 years, even pre-COVID, in terms of how people were using the Visitor Information Centre, and numbers had been declining, and hence that was part of why it was optioned at the time. We are working closely with the Game of Thrones facility to see how we make sure that there is as much drawback into Banbridge as possible, and that might be in a different way than tourist information. So, and it's also important to say too that we need to consider our footprint in the town centres. The Old Town Hall is a prominent building, so we're working with our colleagues in States to look at options around that, and similarly in Armagh. So with members' agreement and with Alderman Byrne's agreement, we would like to bring a more detailed paper back to the Economic Development Committee in June. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. I'm going to bring back Alderman Burns and Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I appreciate what they were saying there about, digital information. A lot of older people are not computer literate and aren't able to use it. Also, we have the Visit Armagh website, which doesn't suit the people of Banbridge because they don't associate the two. But another thing when you're talking about digital, people are being advised now to go online for their banking. And what's happening? They're closing all the banks throughout the country. And then older people aren't able to access banks when they close the branch. So that's what I'm talking about. There's a lot of older people comes in to visit Banbridge and the other places as well. And I do think that we need to provide some sort of a service. But if it's at F.E. McWilliam, that doesn't mean that people have to come on into the town. We're trying to encourage more people into the town centres, and to get them to spend money in the town centres as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alderman Burge. I'm going to bring in Councillor Baxter, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I agree with Alderman Burns that you want to get people into the town centre. That's really what it's all about. But just really on a wider point, and I'm not talking Banbridge specific here, but there was an issue in Armagh as well. I know Armagh's probably where a lot of the tourist stuff is. But just in terms of numbers, Brian, you had said that the numbers had been declining, pre-COVID. To me, and it's only my own personal view, this isn't even, anything else, but and I know what Alderman Burns said, older people use these services, but surely, the vast majority of people now, if they're looking for a tourist type event, the first thing they do, they go onto their phone. Everybody's got a computer now in their pocket. Older people know, but the older people who are going to be going to these places will probably know where they're going anyway, because they've researched it or talked to family or whatever, or family will look it up for them. I know my dad rings me regularly because he's had a computer longer than me, but he still can't use it. So he rings me, I'm doing such and such, will you come over and do this for me and look it up online and print it off? So there's that connection as well. So I think we're talking about a very, very small, probably number of people here. So I'm interested to know what the user figures are. But that build's a fantastic build right in the middle of Banbridge, but certainly is very key, a very key place. But I'm just not so sure, personally speaking, that a tourist information centre is maybe the best use for it, but I'd be interested to hear what other members say. I'd be interested to hear, Brian, what the actual usage figures were for people who were actually there specifically for tourist information. 5,000 annual visits. I've just seen it there, but that 5,000 annual visits, Brian, that's room rentals and up the stairs and right, being in that building for coffee mornings and all that type of thing. How many of those 5,000 in the year were there specifically to see what, tourism things are on offer in the town? I would suspect it's very, very little.
Thank you very much, Councillor Baxter. I'm assuming you use somebody else saying whenever your dad contacts you about using the computer, you contact the wee one. Councillor Wilson, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, probably just echo some of the comments already been made. That building is iconic in Banbridge Town Centre, as you know yourself, Lord Mayor, and I hope it is put to some very good use. And the F.E. McWilliam Centre, as good as it is, echo obviously what Alderman Burns said, it's not in Banbridge Town Centre. We need some sort of tourist information in some shape or form in the town itself. And, if digital obviously is the way things is probably going, we need to get the digital right. The prime example was the Busk Fest last weekend in Banbridge, and it was on Visit Armagh online. I don't really see what Visit Armagh has got to do with the Buskfest and Banbridge. So if we're going to, promote digital tourism and information, I think we need to get the thing right. If it's something on in Banbridge or wherever it is, the promotion has to be linked to that specific area. I don't think people associate the Buskfest and Banbridge with Armagh. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson, and no doubt Brian, you'll bring us much information to the table in June. No more lights on, members. Thank you very much for your due diligence this evening. And this is, as you know, this is my last full council meeting, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks' time at the AGM. Over the past year, when I'm sitting up in here, I have noticed a wee bromance happening. I will maybe announce that in the next couple of weeks, but you can maybe have a wee think about that one, and I shall see you all at the AGM. Thank you very much, members. Bye-bye.